She's a female doctor, a lady doctor. If female nurses are the angels in white, then perhaps female doctors are goddesses in white. She seemed to be around my age, 35, or maybe a bit older. Not bad looking at all. Far from it. She had features that were quite appealing to men. However, when I addressed her as doctor, she showed no reaction, expressionless as she scanned through the X-ray and MRI images on the monitor. "An ambulance, doctor," she said brusquely, not even a hint of a smile. The ambulance had been called by the other party. "My name is David. I had to go to City Hall that day, so I took the afternoon off from work. On my way back, I saw an elementary school boy playing ball. He ran into the street chasing the ball. A large, thick tree created a blind spot for the cars on the street. The traffic wasn't too heavy, but the cars were driving fast. I watched the flow of cars and the boy. This is bad, I thought, dangerous. He's going to get hit. I reflexively ran to stop the boy. Almost simultaneously, I heard the screech of a car's sudden braking. I lifted the boy up, but ouch, the hood of the abruptly stopped car hit me around the waist. The man driving the car rushed to me in a panic. I told him I was fine. It was just a slight hit. But the man fled and called an ambulance. I was transported to this hospital by ambulance for the first time in my life. There were no visible injuries, but I underwent X-ray and MRI examinations. While waiting for the results, the boy I had shielded was brought to the hospital by his mother. The boy, scolded severely by his mother, apologized to me repeatedly, asking if I was hurt. "I'm fine. I'm indestructible. But remember, never run onto the road again. Understand?" The action I took in the spur of the moment prevented a major accident, and I was being thanked for it. With that thought, the pain in my waist felt like nothing, and I was in high spirits. Then a young female nurse came to call me for the examination results. She said to the boy, "You're lucky, saved by a handsome man," and gave me a smile. Truly an angel in white, it seemed like there were countless twinkling stars around her smile. Right after that came that goddess in black. There were absolutely no twinkling stars, and it seemed like she had thick, dark storm clouds on her back as she treated me coldly. "David, about this weekend." "Not again. I told you, I'm good." I declined an invitation from my junior at work, who was obsessed with events for singles. About 6 months ago, this junior asked me to join him as he didn't want to go alone, and I went to an event for singles just once. I wasn't interested to begin with, and indeed, I didn't meet anyone special. It wasn't fun at all. I too think it's about time to settle down since I'm getting older, but I would prefer a more natural encounter. Indeed, I yearned for meeting someone, but I had no desire to attend another event for singles. Besides, at this time, I had someone on my mind, the female doctor who was cold to me. Her aloofness only piqued my interest more. I couldn't help but dwell on it. Well, I don't think it's likely, but in the case of a traffic accident, symptoms like whiplash sometimes appear later. So if that happens, make sure to get checked out at some orthopedic clinic. I remembered her words as I touched the part of my waist where the cars had grazed. It was still a bit painful. All right, it's not completely healed. In that case, why not go and get it checked? Time is of the essence. The next day, I went to see her for a consultation. "Oh, the one from the other day. Are you not feeling well?" The amiable nurse addressed me. I managed to smile and asked her the important question. "Is the doctor who's been seeing me married?" "If you're talking about Dr. Emma, she's single. Why do you ask?" I did a silent fist pump and said I was just curious since a female orthopedic surgeon is rare. I was sweating, hoping she didn't see through my ulterior motive. Just then, my name, David, was called. When I entered the consultation room, she was checking my medical record on the computer. "What brings you here?" "My waist is still hurting from the accident." She looked at the record again. "It shouldn't be a big deal. She casually suggested another checkup if I was still worried. I hesitated, and she remarked, "Is this your first traffic accident? Some patients overreact, especially the timid ones." She was half smirking, a bit condescending. I got a little annoyed. "But it still hurts. I can prescribe some painkillers." She stared at me as she said this. "It really isn't a big deal. If you don't believe me, why not get a second opinion from another hospital?" I had no choice but to back off. That weekend, I was at my regular bar, having a drink with the bar owner. I wonder if female doctors usually marry other doctors. The bar owner stopped chopping and looked puzzled. I continued, partly talking to myself. They earn more, are smarter, and have strong personalities and high pride. They're out of reach for an average office worker like me. As I muttered, the bar owner asked, "So you want to date a female doctor?" "No, not at all. It's just a general opinion." Just a general opinion. As I responded, I realized my mind was full of thoughts about her. She doesn't give me the time of day, treating me with nothing but coldness. But the colder I'm treated, the more the fire within me burns. Am I the type of guy who likes such treatment? As I'm pondering this, my phone starts ringing. It's a picture message from my junior who loves matchmaking parties. He sent me photos he took at a matchmaking party he attended that day. Seeing how desperate he was to get married made me feel pitiful, realizing I'm not that different. After seeing the photos he sent, suddenly the idea of drinking alone at the bar seemed less appealing. It had just gone past 7:00 in the evening, but I paid the bill and headed home. Then, just as I left the bar, a woman's happy voice called out to me. I looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young girl smiling at me. I didn't know who she was. I thought she was calling out to me, but I looked around to see if it was someone else. There was no one else standing. "How are you feeling?" Then I finally recognized her. It was that friendly nurse. "Oh, I hardly recognized you. I thought you were just some girl." A white nurse coat is powerful. It can turn any girl into an angel. She also lived around here, so we walked together, making small talk. "By the way, is Dr. Emma always like that?" I brought her up. "Dr. Emma? Like what?" "Just between us, she seems kind of aloof and hard to approach." To her surprise, I was the first patient to describe her that way. Not only is she an excellent doctor, but she's also friendly and popular among the patients. I listened while nodding, but I just couldn't accept it. "Well, I'm going this way." I watched the angel without a white uniform walking away. So she's only cold to me. Could it be she's playing hard to get? My thought process was unusually optimistic. The pain in my back disappeared before I finished the painkillers she prescribed, and there was no new symptom. So I lost the chance to visit her clinic. However, I noticed the chain on my seldom-used bike parked at the apartment complex had rusted. I decided to ride it for a test and pedal for the first time in a while. The chain made some noise, but there were no serious issues. The bigger problem was the flat tires and the brakes not working well, so I decided to take it to a bike shop. I rode the bike and reached an intersection. The light was changing from green to yellow. The bike shop was just across the intersection. I was too lazy to stop, so I paled into the intersection and collided with a turning vehicle perfectly. Thanks to the other car's abrupt braking, it didn't end up in a major incident. I scraped my arm when I fell, but it was just a minor bleed. The leg I band wasn't in much pain either. The female driver who got out of the car went pale and offered to call an ambulance. But I was the one who rode recklessly, and it's just a scrape, so I refused. Afterward, we called the police and dealt with the accident. I didn't get home until the evening. I shouldn't have been riding a bicycle. I should have left the rusty chain as it was. Regret was all that came to my mind. Maybe because of that, I had no appetite and felt down. My mind was foggy, probably exhausted from the police inquiry and stuff. The leg that got hit started throbbing in pain, so I decided to go to bed early and promptly got in bed. The next morning, I woke up when a sharp pain ran through my leg as I rolled over. I felt nauseous and out of sorts. Symptoms like whiplash might appear later in case of a traffic accident. Her voice echoed in my mind. Is this it? Is this what she meant? I had no choice but to go to the hospital. So I called in sick to work and went to her clinic. How can I help you today? When I staggered into the consultation room, she, who was looking at her computer, hurriedly stood up and supported me. Then she gently led me to the examination bed. I was riding a bicycle yesterday and got hit by a car. I explained the situation and how the pain in my leg worsened this morning and that I felt nauseous. Let's get you tested right away. Her voice was filled with a kindness that wrapped around one's heart, unlike any I had heard before. Her usual cold demeanor had done a complete 180. Could it be that I'm seriously injured, need major surgery, or have after effects? On her advice, I was admitted to the hospital immediately. I asked my colleague, who loved events for singles, to bring the minimum necessary belongings from my home. Then she appeared in the hospital room to inform me of the X-ray and MRI results. I had a mild concussion and bruises all over. The concussion is very mild. A neurosurgeon has confirmed there is nothing to worry about. There were bruises other than on your leg, but there's no abnormality in any bones. You're lucky. All my worries about surgery and after effects were unfounded. With this in mind, I asked, "Really?" Then she said, "Really," and gave me a kind smile. Seeing her face, my heart rate soared. She was most concerned about the severely bruised and swollen right leg. If the pain is too much and walking alone is difficult, she suggested staying in the hospital for about a week to observe the progress. Of course, I followed her advice. Is the female doctor who just left your assigned doctor? David, when she left the hospital room, my company's junior asked. When I responded yes, my colleague crossed his arms and fell into thought. When I asked, "What's wrong?" he said, "I feel like I've met her somewhere before." My injury was healing well, and I was told I could be discharged as planned. There was no need for any special rehab, but I had to visit the hospital once a month for the time being. On the day of discharge, while I was packing my belongings in my room, she came to see me. "You're being discharged today. Congratulations. Thank you for everything." As I bowed my head, she, seeming a bit shy, greeted me with a subtle smile. I was deeply moved by this, and I couldn't help but blurt out, "Actually, at first, I thought this wasn't going to work." "What do you mean by not going to work?" "What wasn't going to work?" She looked at me with surprise. "I mean the compatibility with you. Why did you think we wouldn't get along? Can you tell me why?" I talked while scratching my head, feeling awkward. When I was first brought in by the ambulance, her attitude seemed cold. According to a female nurse I talked to later, apparently, I was one of the very few people she treated like that. "I see," she stopped mid-sentence and looked around the room. Then, leaning close to my ear, she whispered softly, "I have a break coming up soon, so once you're ready, maybe we could meet in the courtyard." "Well, okay." I looked at her suspiciously. She implied she had something to say that she didn't want the other patients to hear. "So, it's not good here. Let's continue our talk there, okay? What is this conversation going to be about?" Hope and anxiety were swirling inside me. After completing the discharge procedures, I went to the courtyard where she was waiting during her break. As I approached her on the bench, she opened her mouth with a bitter smile. I'm the one who's not good at mixing personal feelings when examining patients. Personal feelings. When I asked back, she nodded and explained. Even though I had gotten into a car accident protecting a child and was injured, I joked about being indestructible because I had only minor injuries. That had angered her. Hearing this, I felt like I understood. Doctors are dealing with patients brought in by ambulances with all they have. Her being angry at me for being lighthearted was just the other side of that. I reflected on my behavior. I felt bad and remained silent. Then she suddenly changed her tone and said jokingly, mocking herself, "And this is a bit embarrassing, but when you kept calling me doctor, doctor, I realized." Realized what? Don't you remember that matchmaking party? My mind was filled with question marks. The only matchmaking party I remember was the one I attended about 6 months ago as a favor to my junior. During the talk time, it was customary for both men and women to ask each other, "What do you do?" I plainly said, "I'm a doctor." Then I got some weird looks. Jokingly, people started saying things like, "I've been having some pain here," or suddenly started calling me doctor, doctor. Hearing this, I remembered. At that matchmaking party, back then, I was told by my junior that there was a female doctor. For fun, I kept calling her Doc and teased her quite a bit that time. "Oh, was it you, Dr. Emma?" When I asked, she nodded. Her makeup and vibe were totally different, and I hadn't realized it until that moment. Or maybe, just like the angels in white coats, I thought it might be the magic of the white coat. She remembered the humiliation from that party and acted cold towards me. I'm sorry about that. But when doctors are off duty, we're just normal women. It seems like she keeps professional and personal separate. Since then, I meet her once a month for consultations. At the same time, I meet her 2 or 3 times a week, seeing her as just a woman outside the hospital. Just the other day, I took her to my regular bar for the first time. The bar owner whispered, asking what her job was. When I replied she was a doctor, he nodded several times. "What happened?" she asked me, looking puzzled, so I explained. I had previously discussed with the bar owner whether a doctor would marry another doctor or wouldn't consider a regular guy like me. She chuckled. I asked her, "As a matter of fact, what do you think?" It depends on the individual, doesn't it? Some doctors marry other doctors, and some don't. It seems there are people who are set on marrying doctors, but it isn't necessarily the case. Do you mind not marrying a doctor? I don't worry about the job. I don't have to marry a doctor. If I did, I wouldn't be here with you. Does that mean? I couldn't help but look at her. She, with an innocent face, picked up the menu. I was foolish to think aiming for a female doctor was aiming too high. Having high aspirations and love is what brought her and me together. And it's what will keep her and me together moving forward. How was the story today? Pressing the subscribe and like button will encourage more productions. Looking forward to your comments.